Hey, hello everyone, I hope you are doing well and welcome in a new video, a new training Kubernetes video, and the purpose of course is to learn and to level up together. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss the next video about Kubernetes or not. You can check the home page about the channel to discover all playlists, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss the next one. Subscribe and like this video, and you can share it of course to help your friends to discover Kubernetes. Today, another video about volumes. So this is not the first video, but this is the second video. And we will discover the Hostpath volume. So this is another kind of volume. Previously and in the previous video, we have discovered the empty dir. And now this is the Hostpath. What is the Hostpath? So this is just a mount on the local host, like the name can let us think about that, and this is maybe a little bit like the empty dir, but specifically on disk, and the volume is not dropped. This is not an ephemeral volume, not a temporary volume. This is a persistent volume. That means that if you drop the pod and recreate a new pod with the same volume mount, you can use the same data. Not with empty dir. With empty dir, if you drop the pod, you drop the volume that you have inside it on the host. With Hostpath, the volume, the data about this volume is kept on the host and keep the same path on the host. So that means that we need to make a little disclaimer before, because if you use it on a real cluster, not like our demo cluster with only one worker node. If you have multiple worker node, if you mount, for example, this pod with this volume, if you drop this pod, and this pod, for example, can be or will be recreated on another worker, this volume is not synchronized on the other worker. And that means that this pod try to mount this volume, but even if the directory already exists on the worker node, maybe, and for sure, data is not into it. And you can have an empty dir and work again, and this data is not synchronized with this one, and this is an outage or a big issue for your company. So take care about that. When you use Hostpath, you need to keep this pod on the same volume location. So this is really important. And to handle that, or to avoid that, what you can use affinity. In this case, for example, you can bypass that to use affinity based on the node name. You can run a pod with the node name specification, and you can say, okay, so this pod can just run on the node with the name K0S10, and the pod will be scheduled only on this one. And of course, this data, if the volume is kept on this one, you can be sure that you haven't an issue with that, but you need to handle that. The second example to fix or to have a workaround on that is to use the node selector. So this is exactly the same thing like that. You set the host name, and you can use the affinity like labels, just to say we want to be sure that this pod is mounted on K0S10. This is the particularity about the local the Hostpath, which is a local volume. If you want to avoid totally this kind of thing, you can use volume with synchronization like Ceph FS or Gluster FS or NFS or stuff like that for distributed storage or not, but external storage. Really important. If your storage is external, of course, you can your pod can just move from one worker to another worker. So this is really, really important. Some options that we can use for the Hostpath is, the first one is the directory. Of course, we can specify an existing directory, but if you don't want to create your directory before to create the pod directly on the host, you can use the specific key directory or create that can use an already existing directory, but you can but directly Kubernetes, but the pod or the process can create directly the directory if this one is not exist. Of course, you can use the same thing for not a directory, but for a file, and you can use the file or create, exactly the same thing like here. If the file is not exist, it will be recreated. And after that, the socket, so you can mount a socket directly inside it. You can use char device, so this is specific mount for character device, and the block device, you can mount it inside it also. We will see in the next video the NFS mount, and now it's time for just a little demo part of time. And what we want to do, we want to make an example with Postgres, not directly with Postgres. We can use directly the first one here. So what we want to do, we want to create a pod named Hostpath. Really simple. We have only one container inside this pod. This is a BusyBox container with a sleep based on 1 hour. And after that, we want to mount inside it with a volume mount with the name host volume, mount on USR share host data, and we want to store it on our local host with the host path like here inside the data directory on our host, and we want to create the directory if this directory is not already exist. This directory doesn't exist. So let's go. We want to create the pod.yml. Okay. So we can execute directory directly the apply like that. Okay, so the pod is created. Okay, it's ongoing. And now if I just ls / we can see that we have the data here, ls data, and we can go inside the pod like kubectl exec -ti. We want to go inside the Hostpath pod, and this is an Alpine, so we can use a classical shell. And now if I use USR, what is it? USR share USR share host data, we have it. Okay, it's empty of course, and now we can edit something inside it like echo 1 inside the Hostpath, and we can create a test.txt file. Okay, if I go to check inside our host, we can check the data directory, and inside the data directory we have, oh, maybe I make a little mistake for sure. So we have the file, it's empty. Normally it's not empty. What I did, cat, it's in USR share, what is, sorry, share host. Oh, okay, it's empty. What what is the problem? Ah, okay, now it's good, and we can check again, and now we have the one inside it. And what does it mean? It means that if I just remove this pod, kubectl delete pod Hostpath, like that, so that takes a few seconds to remove it, but we can remove it, and if we check with the cat again, we keep our text.txt file, so I can check it. Okay, that takes a few seconds, sorry, 30 seconds exactly, because I can use --grace period and set 0 second. And if I check again with the cat, we just remove our pod, but we keep our data. So if I run again the same pod, like that, and exec again, like that, and cat again, in usr share host datas txt, and I keep it. Okay, so great. Now I can delete again the pod with my specific option, grace period set equal to 0 second, so 0, not 0 second, like that. Normally is instant. Okay, and now what we want to do, we can be close to use a real example, and to do that, for example, we want to run a Postgres. So to do that, we want to use a deployment with the name Postgres, only one replica, and the template of pod, of course, based on the label app Postgres to match the selector about our deployment. The specification about our container, and we have only one container. This is a Postgres in 13 version, so this is not up to date. And inside it, we have, so we want to set the on variable named Postgres user to admin. That means that we will have an admin user with the password set to password. Not really cool, but yes, it's just for the demo. And by default, we will create a specific database, testdb. Okay, we want to use a container port based on 5432 port, and we want to use a volume mount where our Postgres will store datas, and this is varly PostgreSQL PostgreSQL/data. The name of this volume is Postgres data, and the volumes, the declaration of this volume, not the volume mount, is Postgres data, of course. And on our host path it's in /data Postgres, and we will create it if it's not already the case. So to do that, I can remove the -rf data directory, like that, yes, with a little sudo, of course, and I can run my deployment. So kubectl get pod, I can see that we want to pull the Postgres deployment, and we can connect inside it. I think I just copy some stuff. Yes, you can connect on it, for example, like here. You can connect on the you have multiple use case for the example to connect on it. You can, for example, expose it with a specific service if you want to use it with an external PSQL client. You can use it like here, or what is it? Oh yes, we can do that. Yes. How to expose? So we can reuse our service. How to expose our Postgres? Here we can use the CLI directly to create the service, but we can of course use a manifest to set our service. Here we can use kubectl expose, the name so the type of thing. So this is a deployment name Postgres, the port that we want to use for this service, and the target port of course of our pod, and this is the port 5432. Okay, let's go. Kubectl get svc, we have it. Okay, perfect. And now what we can do, we can create, like here, a second pod, but just to have inside our Kubernetes cluster a Postgres client. So this is a pSQL, a simple pSQL like here, and that means that inside it we have pSQL, and we can set -h, and what we can use -h Postgres, because the name of our service and the DNS provided by this service is Postgres. So we can use Postgres here. We can use also the user, and this user is admin because we set it in the home variable. We have the database. What is the name of this database? It's I don't see it here, but we can see here testdb. So we can set testdb, and after that, of course, the prompt ask us the password. So I can use the password, and now we are inside our Postgres instance, and we can query our database. And for example, we can create create table named T1 with yes, we can set a name of a field like f1, and this is for example an integer like that. Okay, so I can insert into T1 some stuff. I can insert 1 inside it. So insert into T1. Sorry, I just forget the thing. No, it's insert. Oh, my bad. T1 like that. T1, and I want to T1 values, and the 1 like that, and it's okay. If I just make a little select inside the count star from T1 like that, I can see that I have only one line. If I just add the second line, of course I have 2 lines, etc., etc. Okay, and so on. So we have 3 lines, and what we can do to test it, I can just go outside of our client and can use kubectl get pod, and I can destroy this pod. So kubectl delete pod named like that, grace period, and I want to set it to 0. Okay, that takes a second, go, and now I can run again the same pod like that. Okay, so that will reduce exactly the same, I can check the same volume, and I can run again our kubectl run to have a Postgres client, and I can run again the pSQL -h and the name of our service to use the DNS. Remember, we use the DNS in the service inside the same namespace, so we don't need to provide the namespace, and by default here we are in default. This is exactly the same thing, and this is the default service in cluster.local, and normally that will work. And the user is admin, the DB is testDB, and we can set the password. Okay, now we are inside it, and we can list the table. So we have the table 1, so probably we keep the data inside it. So select count star on from table 1, and what we can see, we can have 3 lines exactly, and we kept our data. So cool. And that means, of course, on our host in data Postgre, we have some data. If we make a sudo ls, we can see that we have the content about the PG data. So this is exactly the content that we have inside the Postgres instance. That's it for today. Thank you for following the video. Don't forget to subscribe to this one, share it, like it, and comment it, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.